Hey guys, and welcome to my little creative space. Today we are finally finishing off the monster jar. This is the final touches for the jar. If you haven't seen my previous videos, they'll be linked in the description. So there's three parts to this video. The first part is the making of the lid. The second part is the making of the base of the jar. And today is part 3, which is all the added extras of the inside of the jar and the final little touches to the jar. I'm really happy how this jar's coming along at this point. It is way better than I thought it was going to be. I've definitely made some creative choices along the way to change it, hence why we've got 3 parts now, not 2. And I'm super excited to get it finished today. So to finish off the jar, I want to put something inside the jar, and that something is going to be some bones. So I basically started out by getting around a little dab of clay, and I kind of made it into a marshmallow like shape to begin with. I then used my trusty toothpick to sort of put edges in on both ends, and I just formed them from there, and then I just rolled with my fingers to thin out the center part of the clay. Now, this being a mythical creature or a mythical jar of some description, I mean, it kind of looks like an octopus. It's not exactly an octopus. It's just a mythical creature, so it could be in the sea, it could be on the land. So I've done a mixture of different types of bones. One included was the fish, if we can call it a fish. And to do the fish, I have used some fine wire just to get the shape. I tried it without the wire. I'm really glad I chose to do it with wire because it was just falling apart without it. So it was just a lot of fiddling, getting it onto the wire, getting it into the shape. I've used my handy paintbrush to sort of shape it into the way I wanted it. It took a long time to get the fish done, but I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I've also done things like teeth, knuckle bones, random bones that I don't know where they would belong on any creature. Just use your imagination and create what you want. Definitely use reference photos if you want to get more realistic looking bones. I ended up doing 2 batches of bones, so I did the first lot that you just saw, and I then baked them, and I put them in the jar to realize that there probably wasn't enough bones to sort of see into the jar, so I decided to do a second batch. I tried to make some of these bones a lot bigger, just so when they were in the jar it would make everything sort of stand up so you could see it, I guess, better than you could originally. And so with these second bones, I tried to make a lot of them look like they'd been snapped off. So instead of putting the knobbly bits on both ends, I was putting my paintbrush into the end of one, creating a hole, and using my toothpick to create lines to make it look like it had been snapped in half. Here's me creating the tooth. However, the clay was so soft that making the tooth was such a struggle. I kept squishing it, and I really wish I had a harder clay to use to create the teeth. I think they would have come out looking a lot better. And as you can see, there's a shark-like tooth in the background. The funny thing is, at the end of it, it's kind of like a human tooth, so I'm not sure. As I said, these aren't realistic. Just go with it. It doesn't really matter. As I said, it's a mythical creature. It could have eaten other mythical creatures. So I also put them in the oven to harden. It took about 10 minutes with the Sculpey Ultralight. And then when I pulled them out, they were a bit hot to paint. So I decided to go onto the lid at this point. Now, all I needed to do with the lid was, when the lid was on, I was getting a white ring around it. The reason I didn't go over this with clay in the first place was I wasn't sure if the lid would be functional if I sort of overlapped the clay. So I've taken my black paint pen, which can be used on multiple surfaces, and I've just taken that paint pen and gone around the edges with it. There is a slight difference in colour. You don't really notice it too much in the end. There might have been a better way to do this. Not sure. If you have a better way to do this, please let me know in the comments for future. I'm always up for ideas on how to improve my work. So then I've just taken a brown acrylic paint and watered it down, and I am just dipping the messiest way possible the bones in this mixture, and then I'm grabbing my trusty paint cloth and then I'm wiping it off or dabbing it off, and this is just giving the bones, they kind of look like they've been buried a little bit. They're aging them, and I don't know, they just make it look that little bit more realistic. And again, there's probably a cleaner way to do this. I'm not a clean person when it comes to art. I like using my fingers. I don't care if they get dirty. I guess it's just part of it. And so then once I've got them all covered in that brown wash, I've just then sprayed them with a matte sealer. And then I've got my trusty hairdryer. Everything's trusty, isn't it? They haven't failed me yet. So I've just got the hairdryer, and I'm so impatient when it comes to things like drying time. So I'm just drying them off to try and get that done quicker. And again, impatient. I didn't remove the surface that I was painting on, so there's a little bit of brown paint on there, and some of them got a bit of spots. And here they are in the jar. I think this looks absolutely amazing. Obviously you can stack them to your favourite bones so you can see them on top. But I think this mythical creature has enjoyed his lunch. So now I'm just grabbing an old nail file, because as I previously said in the last video, when I created the teeth, I still had black polymer clay stains on my hand. As I said, I'm not a clean person when it comes to art. I rush things, and so when I rolled out the white teeth, I got black fingerprints on them. So I then decided to take some of that brown wash I used on the bones and go over some of the teeth with it. Again, I had sealed these already, so it wasn't really wanting to adhere to them a lot, but so I just kept brushing the paint on, and it was sort of splotching, but as it dried I sort of rubbed those splotches out, so it was more liney than splotchy, as you'll see at the end. Then I just went in with a matte spray over the top of all of that and dried that off with my hairdryer, and then I went back in with a gloss spray for the middle of the mouth. I did previously in the first episode of this use PVA glue in the middle, try to get a shiny salivary effect. It definitely would have been better with resin. I don't have resin, so I did that. I didn't have gloss sealer at the time either, which again would have been better. So I decided to go in this time with the gloss, and it kind of helped. And then I went through the bones and decided which bone I wanted it to be holding. This one had a slight curve to it, which I liked. And then I just got some super glue and glued a bit on and held it there. Now I had to hold it there for quite a while for the super glue to actually hold. And here is the final product. It is completely finished at this point. I'm sure there's other things I could have done to it to make it better, but I am really, really happy, considering that I started this off with just wanting to do the lid, then thought, hey, the base would look great too. And then I did that thinking, oh, we could so improve this further. So I'm really happy with the outcome. You don't have to do the bones if you don't want to. You can have it as a usable jar, so just leave the bones out. I do like the one hanging off its tentacle, but if you want to be able to use the jar, just keep the bones out of it. So this is a display piece for my partner, so I wanted to put the bones in there to give it some more depth, and I really, really love it. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new to this channel, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video.